Hello everyone, welcome to Dark Fae Tarot. You are joining me on the end of what was a beautiful day in Brussels. Welcome to new subscribers, welcome back to those who already know me. So yes, I am doing this tag, Onedeckgonewild. Had a really hard time choosing a deck, which I think several other people had the same issue as well. I had a really hard time choosing this deck and the deck to do for this tag. And originally I was thinking of, I would have chosen the Foraxa, but I just did the review of the Foraxa and I was like, okay, I need to pick something else. So yeah, I decided to go with my gut, and I mean, it was tough. I could have done another deck as well, but let's say this is the summer edition. And then that way I can just say, this is the tag Onedeckgonewild summer edition. I might do it again in the winter. So for the summer edition, I have picked, yes, Tarot of the Hidden Realm, artwork by Juliajeffreys, guidebook by Barbaramoore. This is a Llewellyn deck that you can get from many platforms, including Amazon. It retails around the €30 mark. Of course, prices may vary depending on where you live. So it is a very easily accessible deck, and I absolutely love it. So I worked with this deck in the spring of 2022. Wow, that seems like dog years, thousands of years ago, but it wasn't. It was just last year. But yeah, I worked with this in the spring of 2022. I wanted to work with this deck for a long time, and I knew that I was going to love it. It's a Fae deck. It's a Fae deck. I mean, yeah, I knew I was going to love it. But I really didn't know what I was going to get from this deck until I kind of it's called Tarot of the Hidden Realm, and I went into the Hidden Realm. So why did I pick this deck? I picked this deck because, and these are the backs before we forget. I picked this deck because this deck is unique. We need to avoid that shine. This deck is unique. This deck is a Fae deck that says, come into my world. And we're not looking always at the cute stuff. We're looking at Fae life. And so I picked this deck because it really is a representation of what I feel is close to the Fae energy that I know and have experienced and feel a kinship with. And I grew up in Northern England, and there is something about this deck which is the colors, the tones. This is a deck that for me is a really beautiful representation of that moment between, I would say somewhere between Lammas and Mabon, that time where the summer energy is starting to change. It's starting to become that crispness. It's starting to cool down. The leaves have lost their brightness. We've got more browns and hues in this, and you can see it here. This deck is just magical in so many ways. And the most unique thing about this deck, which you can already see as I'm showing you the majors, and it's going to continue into the minors, is that we have very little going on in the scenery. We are just seeing the faces. I mean, when I first discovered this deck through other people's reviews, the first thing I heard was its face is close up. And so it makes it a really tough RWS based deck. But its beauty is that it's in the emotion that we're going to really read the key. And for me, that is very, very unique. Okay, favorite set of minors. I wanted to pick others, but I think I should really go with the truth of you're all going to roll your eyes probably, but I'm going to go with the truth of what is my favorite minors in this deck. Although I love a lot of minors in this deck, but my favorite 4 altogether, if you can say it that way. I don't want to mix up the order, so that's why I'm trying to arrange it. Is the aces. So this is the Ace of Wands, the Cups. Here we have the Swords, and here we have our Earth. And the reason is because they're beautiful. They really represent their suit. These animals look they're cute, but they're not that cute. I don't know how else to put it. They're not anthropomorphized. They haven't been given human features. They're in their raw animalistic energies. They're true to their environment. We don't have some kind of strange animal that wouldn't be in the British Isles popping up here. So this deck for me is really, really true to its origins. But these aces, that seed energy, that potential within the animal is just, I just love it. It's divine. So yeah, That's what my favorite minors are. So by the way, in this tag, I'm not going to do every question, just picking out some of them. What card reminds you to relax when it comes up? Now that's a really good question, because in this deck, there's a lot of cards that remind me to relax when it comes up. So let me show you a few. Now this deck, I mean, I'm going to quickly go through them so that you're not bored just looking at me. I mean, that's not relaxing. But there are cards in here. Hold on a second. Let me find one quickly. There's Six of Cups. I mean, this nostalgia card. It's very calming. Even the Six of Swords, even though that's a journey where she's coming out of rough and going towards like calmer seas, I mean, that's relaxing because you can see that there's hope there. Another one. Let me show you another one. I mean, this deck is just so full of beautiful contemplative features in it. Part of it. Here's one. Look at that Nine of Pentacles. I mean, just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And this is the one that I wanted to show you when I think of relax, when I think of this. I mean, look at this Page of Cups. I mean, this really is about being inspired when we get still. And then we see the idea pops up because we're getting really quiet inside. And when that quiet, that's when the stirring happens and the new idea comes forward. I mean, look at that beautiful stillness. So stillness of emotion. So yeah, this is a very calming card. This is a card that I can meditate with. Okay. What is your favorite representation of insert card? There's like a few. Okay, I'm going to pick one and then I'm going to pick another one, and then they're kind of like, they're a bit similar to each other. Hey honey, you okay? Oh, just checking if see my cat's okay. Here she is. Oh, hold on a second. Just give me a moment. I'll get to the card. Here she is. My favorite representation. Can I find her now? Now I've missed her. Now I'm trying to do too much and I've missed the card. Just give me a moment. Here she is. Look at that 8. This is the 8 of Wands. I mean, talk about action. This card is not just communication. This is action. This is a card of like going into the movement. No, nothing stopping us. You know, this is the Wands flying. And I just love that. I mean, this deck just is an absolute beauty when it comes to emotions. It's got a great guidebook too. But this kind of like feeling for me is like, don't even hesitate. Take the aim and let's just go. And I love that. I love the energy in this deck. This deck is like so potent in its energy and so strong in this is what we need to do. So there you go. What card makes you feel nostalgic? Yeah, this deck has got some beautiful cards here. I mean, nostalgia is a bit of a tough one in this one, but a card that makes me really feel sad, or I don't know, there's something about it that's very let me see if I can find it. I was thinking of either the Six of Cups, which we've already seen, but this one as well. I mean, this is really like, yeah, these are tough times, and there's a sense of nostalgia when I see this. This reminds me of really difficult times and things that we go through, and maybe it's not nostalgia, but it kind of like brings back memories. Another one that I feel very nostalgic about when I see this deck, let me see if I can find it now. I mean, just all these beautiful like children, like the fae folk. Yeah, I mean, look at this. This is the countryside in this deck. The Four of Pentacles. This is nostalgia. So I've pulled out a few. This was a tough question for me, but it's the countryside actually. More than anything, it's the landscape, which actually it's a face deck. So you're thinking, but she just said it was a face deck. But there's a few times where we just see the landscape, and it reminds me of home. And you know, continental Europe, some of it, not all of it, but the part that I live in is very, very flat. Then when we start to go south and west, actually anywhere out of the region that I'm in, we start to see hills again. But the bit that I'm in is just like really flat basically. So when I see kind of like hills, it reminds me of home, and this reminds me a lot of the English countryside. Okay, which Favorite animal? No, wait, hang on a second. What card shifts your perspective? Yeah, so this was the card that I was saving. Was it a card that shifts my perspective? Here we go. Two of Swords. Look at that Two of Swords. I mean, talk about balance. Talk about decision making, and talk about, like, if you get that wrong, it's going to go so wrong. This card shows me just how much is at peril in that decision making, and that we have to get very quiet again. This deck is really about action and stillness coming together. But this, for me, this trusting with our eyes closed and having to follow that intuition to do something so dramatic, and it could go so wrong. For me, that's a shift in perspective for me. The swords in this deck are just amazing. Favorite animal that's represented. We saw it before, but I'm going to show it to you again. It's not the fox, although I love the otter, I love all of this. But this hedgehog is just absolutely, yes, quintessential. It's just quintessential, cozy, and yeah, so that's my favorite animal in the representation. Which court card reminds you most of heartbreak? I'm not sure about a court card that reminds me of heartbreak, but a card that reminds me of heartbreak, which, you know, I think it's very normal in a lot of decks, but in this deck I think was done very well. It is our classic Three of Swords. I want to talk about the Three of Swords. But in this deck, look at this Three of Swords. And look at the cut from the roses that she's holding. So, you know, there's this beauty, this absolute beauty, but it comes at a cost. This deck is just raw emotion, and just where we meet that realm, and the pain and the joy and the sorrow and just the life that comes when we meet the realm. That's just beautiful for me. So there you go. That's the Three of Swords. And, you know, again, that cut on her hands. It's just, yeah, there's something about that. Which card constantly follows you or appears from this deck? So like a stalker card. This is not so much of a stalker card, but this is a card that literally follows me. Literally, she follows me. Because when this deck is out on the shelf and it's facing out, like when I have it as a display deck, this card literally is looking at me all the time, straight at me. Like, I can't get away from her, at me. And where is she? Here she is. Yeah, of course, it's Justice. It's the cover of the box. Yeah, I'm going to be speechless. If you want to know justice, this is justice. This is what it is to balance karma. This is what it is to trust the sword. This is what it is to allow fate to make that decision. You can see that feather falling. It's just, oh, this deck is just absolutely, there's something about this justice card that after this card, this time I've seen seeing this depiction of justice, and there's one or two other justices, plural, that I absolutely love, where I really have had a journey with this card, with this key. So maybe that's a video I can do in the future. But this for me is an amazing card. Yeah, I mean, depiction of this key. So yeah, this is no kind of like balancing the scales and eyes closed. This is a justice card that's kind of like, I will make that decision and I will enact it. Love it. Okay. If you made this deck a meal, what would it be? Good question. I would make it something with a stew or something with berries. Or maybe a stew with berries. Wild berries. Look, we're not looking at like some kind of restaurant cuisine here. This deck, and we're in the woods. we're going to be eating whatever we can get our hands on. But this deck is just very much hearthy stew for me. What is this deck's favorite book? I found that bit like, I have no idea. I don't know about books. I mean, this is a deck that is the Fae realm. So, you know, today's fantasy books, I'm not into them personally that much, but this is a fairy tale, but a fairy tale that's for adults kind of thing. You know, this is a fairy deck, a Fae deck. How I can put it? The whole land is in here, the whole caboodle. We're not looking at like little pixies with wings, although I love them as well. I love my pixies, but we're not looking at pixies with wings. We're looking at kind of like the real Fae folk. I mean, let me just show you a card that I think I had to keep these in order so that I could show you them quickly if I wanted to show you a card. But I mean, can I find her here? Where is she? Where is she? This was a card that just, you know, it just always amazes me how we can, one can underestimate. I can underestimate the Fae folk. Hang on, where is she? Where is she? Where is she? I mean, look at this. Look at this Five of Swords. This is like winning a battle, but at a cost. I mean, look at her face. She's won, but it's at a cost, you know. Or this is her celebrating Six of Wands. You know, or let me show you another one, which, you know, one of my favorites, the Seven of Wands. I mean, look at that. Talk about being on a prayer, kind of like knowing that, like, you know, you have to stand your ground and you're going to win this one and you're fighting it. But I mean, she's looking for help as well from above. I mean, that's what I feel anyway. I mean, for me, this deck, there's just so much about this deck that is kind of like, yeah, it's its realm. It's in its realm. It's kind of like a deck which is kind of like, you know, you come join me kind of thing. If this deck were to travel, where would you take it? This is the deck that I would take with me when I go into some space in my home countryside or in the countryside here even. This is a deck that wants to be in the undergrowth, and yeah, this is a deck that lives in its own liminal space. Liminal spaces. That's where I'd take it, and it would take me as well. Something you would change about this deck? Yeah, there's one card that I'm like, I think everybody who knows this deck knows what I'm going to pull out because we all kind of like have to grin and bear it with this deck. It's the Magician. I mean, that is like the most cheesiest magician ever. I mean, like, okay, I won't say any more than that. I mean, you get that Magician and you're just thinking, I mean, if I hadn't seen the rest of the deck, I would have stopped at this Magician and thought, I need to send this back, you know. But the rest of the deck I know is beautiful. And then you get something like the High Priestess, you know, like, this deck, sorry about the glare, this deck is clever. Look at that, she's clever. Okay, which card would you hang in the room of your house? I think it would be the Justice card. I already have her as like a box in my house. There are just so many beautiful cards. The one that I think I would want hanging in my home is, again, I mean, we've seen it, but let's just pull her out anyway, because why not? Why not? Yeah, maybe put my face in it, but yeah, I would love this on my wall. She's beautiful. Something that sets this deck apart, we've talked about it in this video enough. This is a face deck. Let's get very clear. You're looking at people's faces. You're not getting much more than a face. And look at that Emperor. It's just, yeah, this deck is just unique in that sense. It's unique in its gentleness. I think it's also very, very unique, or maybe it's not very unique now, but I think it was at its time. It's so unique in the season that it's sitting in. For me, this is as I said, after Lammas, before Mabon. The harvest has come in. We've lost the richness of the normal green. You know, this is, you know, look at the Forest of Enchantment. The Forest of Enchantment is young. It's a fresh green. it's a very youthful energy. I could have also done, oh, by the way, the video on Frost of Enchantment. I think that's a wonderful deck. But you know, it's a youthful energy. It's a deck which, the Frost of Enchantment, it's joyful, but also it's got some heartbreak. It's got some tough, but that deck is such a quintessential fairy tale deck. This one is a step beyond. I mean, this I wouldn't mind hanging in my house either. Look at that strength card. I mean, that's a beautiful strength. That's one of my favorite strength cards. So I think that this deck is set apart because, you know, like that strength card, it shows a courage, a fortitude, a life of the fae, a joy, but we are looking at that harvest season for me, and it really is a karmic deck. You know, it's a deck, a karmic deck, karmic deck. You know, reap what you sow. And I'm a Virgo rising. My specific angle is very acute because of where, yeah, there's things that have happened in my life because of that angle it's falling at, and so my Virgo rising really comes to life at the end of August. You know, that's where she's rich and potent energy kind of thing. And this deck really speaks to that Virgo rising in me in that sense. You know, it's a fae deck, but it's a fae deck that knows exactly the energy that she's working with, and she's not going to beat around the bush. I think this deck is very unique in knowing how it works with the woodland. So yeah, this is a bit of a cheesy devil, but there you go. And this is a very quintessential Llewellyn. Their tower cards, all for me, are all very similar. Like, I need to do a Llewellyn decks video soon. Okay. If if Tarot of the Hidden Realms could have a superpower, what would it be? I think she has a superpower, but of course to the zenith, it would be to take me straight into its liminal space, take me into the hidden realm in an instant. I mean, she does that through imagination, but really physically, to be when I want to be in the woods, 2 a.m. on solid ground, you know, where the leaves are crackling under my foot because they're dry. We're at the end of summer again. We're at the beginning of autumn. I mean, for me, that's just, I mean, and so who would you gift a copy? I've got to go on with these questions, right? Who would I gift a copy of this deck to if I could? I don't know. It's a bit of an odd one. I have to think about that one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure one of my tarottube friends, I don't know if Raika has worked with this deck. I don't know if she has. That's Gigi. Or who else is there? Yeah, I mean, there's loads of people that I think could work with this deck. I think that the tarot community does appreciate this deck, by the way. I just think that it's not for everyone, but I do think that there's an appreciation for this deck. What card would be your pet? I'm going to skip that. Oh, weird. What's the deck's biggest fear? This deck's biggest fear is we think it's just cute bunny snuffles and cuddles and all that kind of stuff. It's not what this deck is about. But I think that, you know, I don't know if I can show this because it's nudity. The world card has nudity, so I'm going to have to cover it somehow. There you go. Look at that world. I mean, this deck is just... Yeah, we've got the aces here again, but I think that this deck, its biggest fear is that we underestimate its sharpness and we underestimate what it really wants us to see. That's the Two of Cups there. It really wants us to see feeling. It really wants, for me anyway, it really wants me to see that these are decision makers in their everyday life and that this is a life between life and death. Make the wrong decision and you might lose it all, you know. And I think that that's, and then yet you have this beautiful loving family here. But yeah, this deck has just so much of yeah, I mean, look at that. So yeah, okay. If the deck had its own collection, what would it collect? I think it would collect twigs and leaves and all that kind of stuff. It would be making its own nest. It would also, I think, collect beautiful magical instruments here, or I mean, yeah, this is a deck of being at one with its natural surroundings. Draw 3 random cards. I'm not going to do that one. Let's skip that. What's the deck's signature favorite scent? I think anything that is ripe apples, ripe bananas, as I think. Wicked Moonlight, her review of this deck this is a funny moment, isn't it? This deck is ripe woodland smoke. When we're not in the bonfire season yet, but the wood is damp now. We have damp wood, we have ripe apples, we have the harvest is coming in. You know, the berries are no longer fresh. They're a little bit, yeah, you got to pick them off and eat them soon. You're probably going to get sick. This is like, you know, picking mushrooms. But yeah, I mean, look at that. Look, I mean, yeah, this deck has this beautiful woodland smell to it. And there's a dampness in this deck. Okay, who is the deck in love with? I think the deck is in love with the reader. I think the deck knows that the reader is going to bring out the fae. The deck knows that. The deck is in love with the person who appreciates her. The deck loves anyone that understands the deck. How old does the deck believe it is? I think, of course, it's the Fae realm. We have no time in that sense. I definitely, in terms of imagery, are going to take her all the way back to, I could easily, for me personally, I mean, I'm sure other people would argue in a different realm, I would easily take her back to Normandy period. We're looking well before, you know, 10 AD. We're looking well over 1,000 years ago. Yeah, this for me is the Isles. This for me is woodland, and then we go towards the coast. You know, we're looking at hearty countryside that then goes towards the coast of the Isles. Who is the deck's father? I don't know about that question. That's a bit strange for me. Gender of the deck, it's a family. This is a family. I call her a she because of the Justice card, just to be very, very blunt. That's why she's a she, because that's the title card, and I absolutely adore the title card. I mean, the cover card, sorry. So yeah, I see her as a she. But of course, you know, this is a family here, a Fae family. I mean, look at that. Look at Morrigan. So yeah, so I'm going to end here because this is long enough. Let's stop here. This is by far a deck that has, you know, it leaves an imprint on me for sure. And I hope you have enjoyed watching this, and maybe you might give this deck a try. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you again soon. Take care now. Bye.